So the integumentary system also includes hair, and hair grows as a pilus, which is the actual piece of hair, from a tube. And the tube that the hair grows in is called the hair follicle. You have hair everywhere on your body except for the palms of your hands, the soles of your feet, the furthest parts of your fingers and toes, the very last joints, and then on the lips, the nipples, and some parts of the genitalia. There are three kind of stages or types of hair. The first type of hair is called lanugo, and this is really fine, downy, unpigmented hair found on fetuses, and it develops in the last 3 months of pregnancy. You can see on this premature baby that the lanugo hair is still present. Most often, when a baby is born to term, the lanugo hair is completely gone and it's replaced by what's called vellus hair. And vellus hair is fine. It's typically unpigmented hair. And in women and children, it covers most of the body except for like the scalp and the eyebrows. Vellus hair can be as sparse as 10% of an adult male and almost completely replaced by terminal hair. So as we reach adulthood, some of this vellus hair gets replaced by terminal hair, especially on the eyebrows, the scalp, the pubic hair, and then some parts of the trunk and limbs, especially on men. All right, here we have the anatomy of the hair follicle. So again, the pilus is the entire piece of hair, and the follicle is this tube that it grows in. So we've kind of see the follicle starts down here, and it comes all the way down into the dermis down here, almost all the way to the hypodermis, and then back up. That's the tube. The shaft, so if we take this pilus, we can draw an imaginary line here where it exits the skin. So typically we're going to call it the hair shaft. That's what's visible above the skin. And then the root is everything below. So the root is going to be this entire part of the hair below the skin in the epidermis all the way down to the dermis. The bulb is this last part of the root that kind of bulges out here. So that's called the hair bulb. The dermal papilla is actually a part of the dermis. So the dermal papilla is part of the dermis that kind of comes up and forms a little finger inside of the bottom of the hair bulb. You can see it over here as well. Here's the bulb, kind of zoomed in here. And then this is the dermal papilla right here. And this is where the hair is actually growing, right above the dermal papilla in this region called the hair matrix. So the hair matrix right here is where we undergo mitosis, and those cells are going to push this hair up, and it's going to grow here. Attached to the hair, we have a couple of features. This is a sebaceous gland. So this is the gland that's going to secrete oils to keep the hair nice and smooth. Sometimes we also have some sweat glands. So this is a sweat gland here that's releasing into this follicle as well. And then we have what is a smooth muscle called the erector pili muscle or the pillow erector muscle. I'm okay with either term, whichever one you like. So pili, it's 2 L's, erector muscle or piloerector muscle. And this is a smooth muscle. And what this does is when you are cold or scared, it will pull on this hair. And instead of kind of lying flat on the skin, your hair will stand up straight. And sometimes it causes a little puckering at this follicle. And we call that like goose pimples or goosebumps. Hair comes in a bunch of different textures and colors. So the anatomy of the actual hair pilus. Here we have this medulla, which is the center part here, which is really loose, full of air spaces. The cortex is the actual colored portion of the hair, and that's going to express the melanin. And then the cuticle is this thick outer portion of the hair, full of kind of scaly cells that overlap, kind of like roof tiles. And you can see that the color of the hair depends on the melanin. So this blonde hair has mostly the kind of reddish pheomelanin and very little eumelanin. The darker brown hair is mostly eumelanin, which is that darker brown color. This reddish hair has a bit more equal amounts of the red and brown, but very little yellowish color here. And then you can see the cross section. So the cross section is the shape when we cut it across long ways. Hair that is straight has a circular cross section, so this is a pretty even circle. And then hair that is wavy is going to be more of an oval cross section. As we age, our hair tends to go gray, and what happens in gray hair is the central medulla widens, we get more gray space, and we lose some of the pigmentation in the cortex. The hair cycle occurs in 3 stages. The first stage is anagen, and this is when the hair is attached to the dermal papilla and it's growing. It spends about 90% of its time in this cycle. When a hair is transitioning into catagen, the mitosis here is going to stop, and then we're going to start to see some extension of this hair bulb as it releases from its blood supply. And then eventually that will cut off, right? Telo means the end. So the blood supply will cut off, and then this hair will fall out. Some irregularities in hair growth are called alopecia. So you can see alopecia up here. She's having some thinning right here. Alopecia is just a term for thinning or baldness. Alopecia is common in women who wear their hair really tightly. So if you wear your hair in a really tight ponytail all of the time or really tight braids, over time, a lot of people will start to see as they age that the hair along the edges of where it's pulled tight starts to kind of thin. This is called traction alopecia because it's caused by that tight pulling. A lot of the times traction alopecia can be reversed by stopping pulling on the hair. So wearing the hair loose, allowing it to regrow rather than pulling on it tight. Alopecia is common with age, so as people age, both men and women, hair tends to thin or go bald. When hair goes bald unevenly across the scalp, we call that pattern baldness. This is more common in men, so it's usually called male pattern baldness. And you can see that you lose hair kind of on the back of the head and the top of the head first. And then, so this is that kind of pattern of hair loss. So what's the purpose of having hair? Our ancestors used to have hair on their bodies to help keep them warm. So if you think about when you're cold, your hair stands on end. And that doesn't do much to keep you warm because you don't have very much hair. But for this polar bear, when the hair stands on end, it makes the actual amount of hair thicker. And that creates a nice insulating layer of warm air right next to the skin of the polar bear. It alerts us to the presence of fleas and ticks. So if you take your pencil and run it along your hair without touching your skin, you will still feel it. So there are nerves connected to our hair follicles that alert us to the idea that there's something on our body. We use hair to advertise our species, age, sex, identity. So besides personal expression, we can see examples of this in the lion, right? So only male lions have this big mane, and they puff it out to look larger. Our pubic and axillary hair, so pubic hair and then is on the genitalia, axillary being in the armpits, signifies sexual maturity. Pubic hair can also help to guard the entrances of the genitalia against bacteria or pathogens. Guard hairs or vibrissae. So if you go look at your cat or dog, they have whiskers. And these vibrissae can help to detect senses. We also have guard hairs in our nose and ears to help protect our nostrils and ears from small organisms or invading microorganisms. We can also use hair to expression. Benedict Cumberbatch over here with his eyebrow raised. A lot of our communication with each other is nonverbal. Think about how hard it is to communicate via Zoom when nobody has their cameras on. So a lot of what we understand about tone is based on the nonverbal communication we get when we look at each other's face. All right, so let's talk about nails. Nails are a derivative of the stratum corneum, so that's that most superficial layer, and they're clear and very dense and hard. We have flat nails, which is only common amongst primates, which is the apes and humans. Most species that have nails have more of a talon-shaped nail rather than a flat nail. So if we look at the anatomy of the nail, the actual nail plate is broken up into the free edge. So this is what you kind of see, the white part that goes past the skin. If you bite your nails, you probably don't have much of a free edge to the nail. The nail body is the part that's visible, that's kind of attached to the finger. And then the nail root is this part that is underneath the nail fold. The epichyme, so the epichyme right here is called the cuticle. So when you go get your nails done, they usually push this back, and it's always going to come back. So this cuticle, nails grow this way, and the cuticle will come out as this nail continues to grow. Nails are used for tools, for grooming, for picking. Flat nails give us a lot of dexterity in our fingertips. They actually have increased sensitivity. So when we press something against our fingertips, this hard surface up here actually provides a counterforce. And that's going to allow our fingertips to have an extra increased sensitivity thanks to these large flat. So take a moment and differentiate between the structures of a hair pilus.